Greetings everyone. So you may remember that a little while ago I did a video about Tommy Robinson when he was released from prison near the end of May. And in the video I was asking the question whether he had become a Catholic because he came out of prison being filmed and he was wearing a rosary as he made his way out. And so it's very odd for somebody to wear a rosary unless perhaps some kind of spiritual conversion has happened. Of course, some people do wear rosaries just as a fashion accessory, but it would be very unlikely in Robinson's case, or in Stephen Yaxley Lennon's case, to give him his real name, to be wearing a rosary just for fashion. He doesn't seem like the type. So it did beg the question as to whether Robinson had actually become a Catholic while in prison. Now, the reason he was actually released at the time he was released was because of good behavior. He wasn't supposed to be released yet, but apparently they'd noticed a big change in his behavior, and I suspect that was to do with the fact that he was probably becoming more interested in the Christian faith, talking to the priest or pastor who was coming to the prison, attending church services perhaps, and they thought, you know what, this guy seems to be different, and so they let him out earlier. But the more I've examined it, the more I've reached the conclusion that actually I don't think Tommy Robinson is a Christian at all. I'm generally not a big fan of Tommy Robinson. It isn't to do with his views. I don't have an issue with the fact that he has a problem with Islam and he's concerned that his country may become Islamic in future. I don't have a problem with the fact that he has concerns with mass immigration. But I do have other problems with him. The first is that he appears to be pretty violent. There are numerous examples, as I indeed illustrated in my previous video, of Tommy Robinson basically fighting with people, knocking people out, etc. Now, I know the excuse is often made by him and his followers that he's being targeted, that people are coming at him and he's simply trying to protect himself, and in doing so he is having to sometimes knock people out. But it's an excuse I don't really buy. Because for some reason, Tommy Robinson is often involved in this kind of thing. So this idea that people who disagree with his views because they're controversial and then they go and attack him and he has to basically hit them in order to protect himself doesn't work for me. If you take someone like Douglas Murray, who I also mentioned in my previous video, him and Robinson actually have very similar views on a number of issues, including Islam and immigration. And yet for some reason you don't find videos of Douglas Murray pummeling somebody, or somebody laying on the floor knocked out because Douglas Murray has smacked him one. Yet with Robinson this is so often the case. In fact, there was a very recent case where a man was literally laying on the floor at St Pancras International Station after Robinson had knocked him out. And of course Robinson claimed that the guy had come at him aggressively, and so it was the only option he was left with. Anyway, aggression and general thuggishness is the first thing I don't like. The second thing I don't like about him is that he is promoted by Zionists and he is funded by Zionists. Does that mean Robinson is a Zionist himself? I'm not convinced. I don't think he actually cares about Israel or the Jewish people's right to have their own state. I simply think that he and Zionists have come together because they both have a dislike of Islam and Muslims. In this sense, Zionists see him as a friend, as an ally. The enemy of your enemy is your friend, so to speak. And so they are very much financially backing and funding him. In fact, there is a whole set of videos that Robinson has just put up on his channel where he is in Israel promoting the heck out of it. People have this idea of Tommy Robinson that he's just this ordinary bloke from England fighting the good fight, speaking the truth, and he happens to have just gained a big following. Whereas I don't think that's the case at all. Maybe at the very beginning that was the case, but at the moment, right now, he has some very big backers who are supporting him financially and who are probably often telling him what to say. And that leads me to the third thing that bothers me about him, and that is his supposed conversion to Christianity. Now, in this case, I actually think that perhaps some of his Zionist friends have told him this would be a good move. They said, hey, listen, why don't you say you're a Christian? And that will get lots of Christians on your side in your country. The reason I don't think Robinson has naturally, organically converted to Christianity in prison is because he came out of prison wearing the rosary, right? He didn't say anything about the rosary at all. He didn't say anything about Christianity when he came out. But he was just wearing it. And he was wearing it for the rest of that day in a few other videos that were recorded of him. He also then did a number of podcasts and interviews. One of them was with ultra-Zionist Ezra Levant, who has his own media outlet, Rebel Media. For this interview, Robinson was still wearing his rosary. However, he had hidden it beneath his shirt, maybe out of respect to Ezra Levant, because he's Jewish. Since then, I have not seen any video anywhere of Tommy Robinson wearing or holding a rosary. There are also not many occasions where you hear him discussing his supposed new Christian faith. In one interview that he did very soon after he was released from prison, he was actually asked straight up if he believes in God and if he's a Christian.
What do you believe in? Are you a Christian? Are you a Jew? What would you say? Do you believe in God?
Yeah, I'm a Christian.
You're a Christian.
I'm a Christian, yeah. I've been pushed more. So I used to say that I didn't believe. My mum was a Catholic, brought up. But then as I've seen the attacks on Christianity, and I've also seen the decay in British society, and the fall of Britain has come from the fall of belief. We have since we've stopped believing, and what built Great Britain? Christianity. What built everything about us, everything about our nation that everyone wants to come to it and make it a success was built on Christianity. Since that's descended, since it's been coming under attack, since people have left it, it's left a void. And that void's being filled. And if we want to understand and remember who we are, as part of our identity, I say to some people, even if you don't believe in Christianity, you don't have to believe in Jesus. That's what built us as a nation. That must be protected. That's part of our identity. So I believe Christian leadership has failed us. But I believe there's a revival happening right now in Great Britain. I want to make a mini documentary on it. Something's happening. Something big is happening. We went to our demonstration, 100,000 people, and there was a lad, and he had Christ is King banner, and the whole place was erupting. And then I looked as 100,000 people were chanting Christ is King in the middle of Trafalgar Square. This is unthinkable, unseen. Something's happening. When you have your loss of identity, loss of culture, and you feel at threat, people are looking back to where it's come from.
Now, if you look at that answer, it's not very convincing. He doesn't answer the first question, whether he believes in God. He does, however, say that he's a Christian. Now, you could say, well, if he says he's a Christian, then that obviously means he believes in God. But afterwards, he then goes on to explain how even if you don't believe in Jesus, you should understand that Britain is a Christian country governed by Christian laws, and we should respect, basically, the influence and impact that Christianity has had on it. So that would suggest that if he's calling himself a Christian, perhaps he's referring to himself as a cultural Christian who does that very thing. He respects Christianity and what it's done for his nation, but he doesn't necessarily believe in any of that stuff. I say this because he didn't say he believes in God. He simply called himself a Christian. He then went on to explain the positive influence that Christianity has had, as well as talking about how he sees Christians coming to his rallies. So it's like he's trying to channel that Christianity that's somewhere deep in this country that may be sleeping, but he's trying to wake it up. But not necessarily because he wants people to become Christian, but because he wants to fight off Islam and fight off the influence of other non-Christian cultures. Now, you might think that's fair enough if you're not a practicing Christian yourself. You might just be happy with the fact that he's patriotic, you believe he's speaking truth to power, and that's enough for you. But personally, I don't like the dishonesty. I don't like someone referring to themselves as a Christian and wearing a rosary when they're not. The other thing you notice in that interview, and in fact subsequently in any interviews or videos that he's done, is that he doesn't really talk about his newfound Christian faith at all. You'd think if somebody converted to Christianity, they'd be talking about it quite a lot. It's a pretty big deal to become a Christian, to accept that worldview, that you believe in God, that you believe Christ died for our sins and rose from the dead. And yet, he doesn't really mention it at all unless he's pressed on it like he was in this interview. So it's very odd behaviour from this supposed Christian convert to not really talk about his Christian conversion at all. But if you think I'm wrong on this issue and you have some kind of evidence you can present to me that Tommy Robinson is indeed a devout Christian, please feel free to share it. Folks, thank you very much for watching the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Have yourselves a blessed day.